Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
This month, 2 billionaires went up to space, or the edge of space, depending on who you ask. Richard Branson flew in his own company, Virgin Galactic's Unity 22, while Jeff Bezos flew in his company, Blue Origin's rocket, New Shepard, a few days later. What happened after Branson's flight was a cheeky remark from the Twitter account of Bezos' company, Blue Origin, about how their pilots will not have a star next to their name, designating them as astronauts because they are real astronauts. Why so? Because the company claims Bezos actually flew into space, but Branson did not technically enter the territory that is defined as space. While this technicality is just a technicality, and for all intents and purposes Branson did go to space, it is interesting to note that the definition of where space begins is actually set by a sports regulatory authority. In this video, let's look at the edge of space, where atmosphere ends and space begins, if that's the right way to define it, how scientists define the boundary of space, what the Kármán line is, and how it all matters. I'm Sandhya Ramesh and this is Pure Science. In a nutshell, here's the deal. Bezos' flight reached an altitude of 107 kilometers, which means it crossed the 100 kilometer mark. This altitude is the internationally recognized boundary of space and is known as the Kármán line. Meanwhile, the earlier flight that Branson flew reached only a height of 86 kilometers, which at the moment everyone is referring to as the edge of space. But the United States, from where both flights flew, designates space as beginning at 80 kilometers. This definition is followed by the US government, its military and air force, especially when making national human flight records, and NASA. NASA also designates space as beginning at 80 kilometers, whereas the United Nations follows the Kármán line and says space begins at 100 kilometers. To understand all these definitions, let's look at the Kármán line and how it came about in the first place. The Kármán line, or the von Karman line, is named after the Hungarian-American physicist and engineer Theodor von Karman, who was an expert in flight engineering and fluid and air flow physics. Von Karman, along with Czech engineers Istvan Petroczy and Ensign Vilém Žižek, also designed the very first ever stable vertical takeoff helicopter between the years 1915 and 1918. It was known after the World War I as the PKZ or PKZ. Von Karman also designed competitive gliders, and he was an expert at supersonic and hypersonic airflow physics. In early 1930s, when he was still in Europe, he had become very uncomfortable with the rising Nazism and emigrated to the US, where he started working on making aircraft more efficient in flying. He was instrumental in developing the swept wing design, which is a part of all modern aircraft, especially commercial aircraft. It's where the wings are angled backwards instead of being angled forwards or straight out extending from the body. He also worked on rocket motors and other aerodynamics projects, becoming an expert in aviation and aeronautical engineering and physics. In 1944, he and his working group of colleagues founded the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, or NASA JPL. He died in 1963, but 4 years later, his autobiography was published. In that, he talks about outer space, and he says that where space begins can be determined by the speed of the vehicle that is traveling there and its height from the surface of Earth. So he explains that if a vehicle shoots up from Earth towards the air, for the most part there is aerodynamic lift because the air pushes the spacecraft up. Only a small portion of this movement comes from the inertia of the force with which the vehicle is traveling. But at about 90 kilometers or so, this flips, and it's only inertia that's pushing the vehicle forward because there is no more air left that can propel or lift the vehicle. He worked on this problem in 1957, 10 years before his book was published, the same year that Sputnik 1, the first successful satellite, was launched, and about 4 years before Yuri Gagarin flew to space for the first time. Von Karman then says that this height is a physical boundary where aerodynamics stops and astronautics begins. And he thinks that space below this boundary belongs to each country's jurisdiction, while space above this line is free for all, because why not? In his original notes, he had also made calculations that actually place this boundary at 270,000 feet, or about 82 kilometers. And this is all Von Karman said. This technical definition of motion with inertia in aeronautics and astronautics was adopted by FAI, which is the international governing body for air sports and spaceflight. It's a record-keeping body too for international aeronautics and human spaceflight or just flight records. The FAI defines the Karman line at 100 kilometers above Earth's mean sea level and calls it the boundary of space. So under FAI definitions, any aerial activity within 100 kilometers of Earth's surface is aeronautics, and anything above that is astronautics. The boundary was called Karman line first, not by Von Karman, but by Andrew Haley, who was an American lawyer who was widely regarded as the first lawyer to actually practice space law. He used the term back in 1963 to describe the agreement that was reached by delegates from the US and the former Soviet Union 2 years earlier in 1961. These delegates had met for the FAI and they agreed that 100 kilometers will be the boundary for record-keeping purposes. Of course, atmosphere doesn't end abruptly. It thins out gradually till it completely disappears. So where we think the atmosphere ends is also up for debate and is subjective. We know our atmosphere is classified into layers. Troposphere is the thickest part of our atmosphere and it's the bottommost part. It goes anywhere up to 12 to 20 kilometers depending on who you ask. Most planes stay in this region as well. Then there is the stratosphere, which extends all the way up to 50 kilometers from the Earth's surface. Then there's the mesosphere up to 80 kilometers, followed by the thermosphere, which goes up to 700 kilometers, and then finally exosphere, which is at 1000 kilometers from the surface of the Earth. The height of these atmospheric layers also changes with change in space weather and solar activity, as well as weather and climate here on Earth. So the definition of boundary of space will continue to remain fluid and variable if we consider only atmosphere versus lack of atmosphere, or rather atmospheric propulsion for vehicles. Instead, scientists have proposed alternative definitions. Astrophysicist Jonathan McDowell and space jurist and historian Thomas Gangale have both worked on the problem. They argue that the definition of where space begins should instead be based on the minimum altitude around Earth that objects can orbit safely and stably without getting sucked in by Earth's gravity. They say that satellites in elliptical orbits with closest approach to Earth, or perigee, below 80 kilometers are unlikely to complete their next orbit. This matters because there's also atmospheric drag, which will slow down the satellite. Meteors also, when they hit around this mark, start to disintegrate in the atmosphere. There is also the idea of free molecular flow in fluid dynamics. In space, there is ample space, and there is ample space between molecules. In such a case, the molecules don't collide much with each other because there is so much space, and they tend to travel in straight lines. So this is another definition that scientists are calling to define the boundary of space by, as these conditions can be recreated in labs here on Earth as well. So overall, there isn't much significant difference in terms of what a person experiences when they hit 80 kilometers versus 100 kilometers in terms of records. Ultimately, in this instant of Bezos and Branson, whether Branson crossed this boundary or not does not truly matter in the larger picture, because his flight too experienced weightlessness. His crew did float before they returned to Earth, and they also did exit the thickest part of the atmosphere beyond which airplanes cannot fly. Branson's spaceplane and Bezos' rocket both managed to re-enter the atmosphere safely with all crew members fully safe, and that is all that was needed by way of more impetus to the space tourism industry and to spaceflight. However, for the future, where space begins will start to matter legally and will be a part of jurisdiction processes. So while we can see playful tweets from loaded billionaires teasing each other about how high they went up for fun, legal processes around the world will start taking more seriously the definition of where space begins and will start working seriously towards setting a more scientific definition for this in the future.